What's up everybody, this is the 2024 Ford Mustang GT. Huge thanks to one of my subscribers for allowing me to finally review an S650 Mustang for you guys here on the channel. So excited to finally get behind the wheel of the 2024 Mustang GT. And this one's a really cool combo here. So the performance package, but it's a base 300A car. So it's a good look at the base interior and what you get there, as well as what you get on the outside here. And it still looks awesome here, especially with the performance package in here in Grabber Blue especially. And so as far as the 2024 Mustang changes, a lot of it is still S550 previous generation underneath. There are some minor little improvements, and we'll get into those in the video here. As far as the sheet metal goes, it does appear to be mostly all new here. You know, you have a brand new front end, nice and low nose there, a much wider and bigger mouth there with the grille than what you had on the previous generation, and looks really mean. I have to say, whenever these first came out, I wasn't in love with the styling, but over the past year or so here, it's really grown on me, and so now I just think it looks fantastic with the way they did those headlights there in the front, and then again, nice wide grille. And then coming down to the sides here, the performance package wheels here that look great in gray. And it's also nice that now you can get the brake calipers in a few different colors now. There's a little bit of choice there versus on previous generations, you really had no choice. So it's great that you have that here, and a nice 5.0 badge. And also a lot of the stuff again is carryover. You have same side mirrors. The side profile is basically the same here. They did change the door handle, but there are some changes. So as far as the length goes, it's 0.7 inches longer than the last generation on a 0.1 inch longer wheelbase. They somehow managed to get the wheelbase a tiny bit longer, even though it's again basically the same underneath there chassis wise, but it's even actually 0.7 inches taller, and the width is the identical width to the S550 though, so there's no changes there. But I mean, there are some changes, and visually I think you're really going to see that, especially out back there where it looks a little longer for that rear quarter panel there. And you'll see going out to the back there, the new back end look with the taillights there that have that V shape cut into them that also extends into the deck lid there. And it's a really cool and really aggressive look. I mean, I can't remember another car in modern times here that has such an aggressive cut there to the rear deck lid. It's a really cool look. Awesome rear spoiler here on the performance packs as well. And this one also has the active exhaust, which is a separate option. And this has that, and so you get the quad exhaust there, and looks great there with the more pronounced rear diffuser and the rear bumper area there. A little bit more black plastic than the past generation, but I think it still looks great and not overboard. Still is a good amount, especially here in Grabber Blue with the black accents and the black and red stripes. It really is a very cool look. I mean, this thing really, still has a lot of presence on the roads, really stands out and just looks awesome. So for the interior of the 2024 Mustang, well, if you watch this channel, you probably already know I have a lot of complaints about this interior. It's very futuristic, it's very high-tech, it's following the trends of what everyone else is doing in the automotive industry, so I can't complain from a car reviewer standpoint, and I'll get into the pros and cons of this interior. But as a Mustang fan and someone who loves the heritage of Mustangs, they threw all the heritage out the window, honestly, with these new Mustangs. There's no double brow for the dashboard like you used to have. There's no round vents like you used to have. The material qualities, while it's still pretty nice with some of the plastics and stuff, you don't have the nice metal switch gear and just any kind of design inspiration from prior generation Mustangs, to be completely honest. But there's also some carryover stuff that is the stuff that you wish they would have changed if they're going to throw out all the historical stuff, and you wish they would have actually improved everything. And there is a lot of carryover in this interior as well. But having set those things aside, a couple positive things now, getting to experience the interior of one of these in person here. The first I'll say is that these screens are lower than they look in pictures. In pictures, they look like they'd really block your view or get in the way. They're really nicely set down low in the dashboard here, so that at least with my seating position here, me only being 5'9", I'm not a tall person, I still actually have a really good view forward. The screens don't block my view or anything at all, which is great. It's also cool to see, again, a base interior, which just has the two separate screens. You get the same screens as standard, whether you're going for a base or the premiums. The only thing is that they're connected by a curved glass enclosure, and you have both screens all together, and this little gap is filled in the middle. That's the only difference. Honestly, I think this base interior is the strongest base interior for a Mustang ever, and really makes you question the need for a premium package, to be totally honest, especially with how much prices have ballooned on these. I think just skipping the premium package is a good way to save money. Yes, you don't get the ambient lighting, you don't get heated and cooled seats and all those types of things, but with the cloth seats, I feel like that's not really an issue anyway. You still have some stitching here on the middle, even some padding lower down here, although the padding is in the area where your knee doesn't come in contact, and where your knee actually comes in contact is a little bit harder. But the grain on this like carbon fiber look plastic is actually pretty pronounced and pretty cool feeling. But then again, like this door, this whole interior, this door card, the door handle, the door pull, the switchgear, the pocket, everything is identical to the S550, aside from, again, this carbon trim, and then they redesigned the speaker grill area here. Otherwise, it is identical. And you know, it doesn't help sell the, especially someone coming and upgrading from an S550 to an S650, you hop in here and you have the same door. You know, it just doesn't really give you a feeling of, wow, I've really upgraded to the next generation. But, you know, I'm not going to complain too much because it's just a gift that this car is still around, since the Camaro is now dead. The Challenger and Charger, at least with the V8, are, you know, now dead. And so, you know, this is the last one standing, and for that reason alone, it's awesome by default. It wins by default. But, you know, I'm still able to complain a little bit because I feel like they could have done a little bit more, even though, again, they didn't have to, considering, you know, they have no competition anymore. But anyway, other quick little mentions here as far as the basics. The seats are great. They're basically the same seats as the S550, same bolstering, same feel. No difference there whatsoever, so you'll feel right at home if you like the S550 seats, but they are really good seats. I love them myself. The steering wheel is the one thing that is really totally all new here, and it's great. It's a flat bottom to it. It has a really nice 9-3 grip, little cutouts here that are more pronounced than the S550s, where you have these nice big 10-2 notches here, and it's a better grip on the wheel too, I will say. They kind of, you know, tapered it down a little bit more here at the 9-3. Just feels really, really good to hold on to. Paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel are plastic, unfortunately, still, but do have a little bit of texturing, you know, and that's okay for these base cars. I'd certainly like to see some nicer paddles though on the more expensive ones. But, you know, you do have some metal trim here around the steering wheel, and just, you know, a few buttons here on it, yeah, just I think it's a really nice looking wheel, to be totally honest. But getting back to these screens, you have a 12.4-inch digital gauge cluster and a 13.2-inch touchscreen display here. And as far as digital gauges goes, they're really nice. Now, you know, even though it's a large display, you will see that the gauges don't fill up that whole space. At first I was like, why are they not utilizing the whole space? But then it makes sense when you look through the steering wheel, because the steering wheel blocks the upper, you know, quarter of that screen, and so it is good they actually, you know, put the gauges in a place where you can actually see them, with the steering wheel, you know, being where it is. So it's a nice gauge cluster. Just has all the usual kind of adjustments you see on other Fords as far as, you know, trip information, stuff like that. But it is nice you can change the gauge cluster theme, and there's a few more customizations than the prior generation here. So you still have, like, you know, the bar style tack for track mode here, and, you know, the round dials in the regular modes, and you know, a few other little differences there with the calm screen and stuff. But I love the Fox body gauges. That is a cool little nod to the past in at least one little area there, and it's cool there, you know, looking back to those. And I'd love to see even more options. Maybe that's something, since this screen now has downloadable over-the-air updates and all that kind of stuff, I'd love to see them someday add in a bunch of different customizations. So if you're not in love with Fox body gauges, but you love 60s Mustang gauges or 70s Mustang gauges, whatever the case might be, it'd be really cool to see a whole catalog of, you know, customizable gauge cluster displays. Coming over to the center touchscreen here, though, I like how it's angled towards the driver just a little bit, but not overboard. It's not as crazy as a C8 interior or something like that. Now, it does take a little while to boot, so you can see when I hit the start button to start this car up, you know, it's several seconds before it actually comes to life and does what you need it to do. So not super quick. I wish they'd, you know, up the speed of it a little bit. And the owner of this car also says that whenever he connects his Android Auto, it really gets glitchy and freezes up and stuff. So, you know, we're still in the early, you know, few months here of production. Hopefully with over-the-air updates, they can, you know, update this screen to be better behaved, but it seems like it's a little glitchy and problematic as of right now here in you know, the end of November of 2023 when I'm filming this. But otherwise, you know, the menus are all logically arranged. It's not too, you know, overboard or anything. Here in the 300A cars, you don't have satellite radio, so you just have AM/FM radio, and that's it. There's no CD player in these anymore either, so it's just AM/FM radio and then your smartphone connection, and that's it as far as, you know, audio sources goes. You know, you do have the USB jack, so you can, you know, plug something into if you'd like. But you know, so it's a good screen though, and you can, you know, there's the My Color and stuff. But the real thing about the screen is that everything is in the screen. You'll have that little bar at the bottom, which always is there and always controls your climate control, because there is no more climate control controls anywhere, no physical stuff whatsoever, like even, you know, your basic stuff. I mean, you do have a defrost button, but that's it. But so you really got to do everything through the screen here, and then especially if you're starting it up in the morning and you have to wait 15 seconds for the screen to fully come online, that's a little bit unfortunate, but it's the way of the future. Unfortunately, it seems like that's what everyone's decided on, and so that's just what you have to live with here if you want a 2024 Mustang. But, you know, I'm sure it's something you can get used to. It's not a big deal, and you know, overall, you know, my limited experience with this screen so far, it's not too bad. We'll see if I can actually get some press loaners from Ford to actually spend more time with this Mustang interior. But overall, first impression, it's not too bad, but I certainly do miss the physical controls. Speaking of physical controls, coming down, you just have your engine start button, a pony button, which does take you into all of the Mustang modes submenus and, you know, the track apps and all that kind of stuff. There's also a favorites button, which is nice. You can program that to do, you know, something, you know, unique to, you know, what you're doing in this interior all the time. And it's great. You also have the mode selectors on the steering wheel as well, so you can have quick access to that without having to poke through this screen. And then, you know, you have a nice open area. They really opened up the center console compared to the S550, so you have a lot more space in there. Still have the same, you know, power outlet there, but you also now have, in addition to a regular USB jack, a USB-C jack. I do wish this was more nicely integrated, though. It literally looks tacked on, like it's not even flush with the other plastic. I don't know why they kind of phoned that in, but, you know, minor nitpick stuff I won't dwell on. Another interesting change, though, is the electronic parking brake. So, you know, this looks like a regular e-brake, but it's all electronic parking brakes. And if you don't get the performance package, you don't even get the handle. You just get a little button like any other, you know, ordinary commuter car in 2023 here. But if you do get the performance pack, you get this drift brake. So not only does it, you know, pull up for just a regular e-brake function, but you also have it as a drift brake, and it'll initiate a slide there whenever you're driving. And it's a cool feature. I'm not going to try out here on public roads or anything, but seems like it's, you know, a very fun thing if you are in an area where you can actually use it safely. But it's also kind of strange with the action, because you pull up, but it doesn't stay up like a regular e-brake that you're used to. It just drops back down, and then you just have a little notification on the screen telling you that it's on. And then you just push down to, you know, release, but there's no actual button on it or anything like that. A little bit odd, but I'm appreciating, you know, them trying to make it seem like the old school thing, even with the new tech. So, you know, I gotta admire the effort there. And then, you know, the cup holders is the same as an S550. The center armrest is the same as the S550. Nice and softly padded though still, and you know, good amount of space in there, and you'll still see a power outlet in there. And then otherwise, the other little interesting thing that I just noticed today was they got rid of the sunglasses tray here by your left knee, and now there is an actual thing here in the roof with a sunglasses holder along with your map lights there. And they actually did raise the roof. That's part of why the height is higher here. There's a bigger cutout now, so it fits helmets better for whenever you're doing track driving. So that is a nice, meaningful improvement here for sure. And also you can see the changed speaker grills on the A-pillar here for the system. Now this is a standard, I believe it's a 6-speaker stereo here in the base cars. It will go up to a 12-speaker stereo in the Bang & Olufsen vehicles with the top premium packages and all of that. Back seat is the same as an S550, and so that means that, you know, you still have no space. Doesn't look like there's any extra headroom back there, unfortunately. But you know, it's never been a super useful back seat, but it's great to have in a pinch or for transporting kids, things like that. Trunk space also looks to be about the same as a regular S550 from before, and you know, still a good amount of space, nice and wide, nice and long. Underneath the floor there, you'll see a little fix-a-flat kit here with the performance package cars. But overall, you know, this interior is just something that is going to come down to subjective taste. If you're a Mustang traditionalist, you're still probably going to hate it, but you know, it's really cool tech. It fits with what everyone, you know, wants these days and what everyone else is going with. And so to keep the Mustang competitive, I'm glad they made the changes. I just wish they would have found a few ways to at least do some kind of nod to the past instead of throwing all that stuff out. But regardless, it's still a really nice interior. But let's start up and go for a drive. The 2024 Mustang GTs, of course, have the same kind of pony key fob as before, but still a nice key. And of course, it's keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button. It roars to life. And this one has a little bit of extra roar as well, because there's an MBRP X pipe on this car, and along with the active exhaust, this one has option onto it, and so it really sounds great. The cool thing with the 2024 is you also have remote rev. So in addition to the remote start you get here with the automatics, you also can do a remote rev, and you can do it several times if you'd like. And it's a really fun thing to be able to enjoy your car from the outside and not have to have someone else rev it for you. And it's a fun thing, I'm sure, at car shows as well. But listen to this awesome exhaust. So setting off here in the 2024 Mustang GT. So the first thing you notice about this vehicle, well, you know, I think one of the first things you'll notice is the fact you have the same visibility as the S550. You know, that's all basically the same still, but it means, you know, it's pretty good. You have a nice pronounced hood there you look out over. I've lived with the S550 generation for, you know, about 9 years now at this point, and they're really, you know, nice cars to live with for sure. Also, one interesting thing here, so they stiffened up the chassis just a little bit for the S650s, so you're going to have, you know, a little bit more refinement ideally. We'll have to test that as we're out driving here. Another thing, as we were slowing down for these speed bumps here, is that you have an electronic brake booster now. That is one of the big changes here for the S650s, and so far I'm going to have to drive a little more to get, you know, more feel, but as far as low speed stuff goes, it feels pretty close to what I'm used to in the S550. There's no learning curve for me here. It still feels very natural, very normal, and exactly what I expected out of a Mustang. So, you know, really like the way that feels. Also, the steering ratio has dropped by 0.5, so it went from a 16:1 ratio to 15.5 now, and so, you know, a little bit quicker steering, and you know, it's not a wild difference, but it certainly feels sharper, and they really focused on the steering. That was one of the biggest things with the S650 here, upgrade-wise, was really sharpening up the steering, and I can certainly feel that, I mean, just in the first, you know, mile here, that it is quicker for sure, and I think it actually probably makes it a little more necessary to have the performance pack this generation, because with the quicker steering, you know, you want to have the suspension that can keep up with that, being a little stiffer, a little firmer here. This one does not have the Magna Ride dampers. That is an extra cost option that you can add on as well. In addition to the performance pack on its own is $5,000 though, so if you want that, plus the active exhaust, plus the Magna Ride dampers, I mean, you're going to be looking at like an $8,000 setup there. So it's a lot of money now to add those things on. I recall the days of the performance package in the S550s was like, you know, $2,500 or something. It was a pretty good deal. These days, you know, it's definitely gotten pricey. And by the way, the performance pack still has all the same stuff as before. It just has the braces, the bigger Brembo brakes, and you know, the unique tuning here for, you know, bigger rear sway bar and those types of things. But there's, you know, nothing new that's really been added for the S650s for that performance package. So if you're used to the S550, it's all the same stuff here for this one. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. Man, does that sound good? Oh man. So this one's running the 10-speed automatic transmission as well, as you can hear, and doing a good job here, even just the normal mode of, you know, figuring out the gear for, you know, being in sport driving mode. It's eager to give me those downshifts and feels very ready. But anyway, it's a 5-liter V8 engine, naturally aspirated. It does 486 horsepower now with the active exhaust. You go down to 480 without the active exhaust. Torque is 418 pound-feet. It's 415 without the active exhaust there. And it's a good amount of power. 0 to 60 time is quoted with the manual at 4.2 seconds and about a 13.5 second quarter-mile time. But the owner of this car, actually, with the track apps built in, with the automatic, obviously you're going to be faster than the manual anyway, so you're probably, you know, guessing, you know, right around a 4-second time is what Ford would probably quote. But the owner of this car got a 3.75 second 0 to 60 time in their own testing, and a quarter-mile time of like 11.38 seconds. So, I mean, and this one, by the way, doesn't have any mods aside from that X-pipe and then just the little carbon filters taken out of the intake there, which, you know, might give you a few horsepower combined for the two of those, but, you know, not any kind of noticeable difference, you know, really. And the fact that it's putting up, you know, supercar levels of acceleration, honestly, you know, with mid to high 3 seconds is wild. And we're not even talking about the dark horse here, which gets, you know, even more horsepower. It's just a regular performance pack GT. And so really, really impressive. And as far as the handling goes here, so you know, of course, having all of that power, it's nice to have a nice big 6-piston Brembo front brakes, 4-piston rear brakes here, and nice big rotors on these as well. And again, same braking stuff as before, so nothing different there aside from, again, the electronic brake booster giving you a slightly different feel, and then of course the drift brake giving you some extra you know, differentiation there with the rear brakes as well. But otherwise, you know, up at higher speeds here, it still feels nice and normal, has a little bit of a dead travel still before you get into the, you know, the heavier braking feel. And you know, of course, this is still the 10-speed automatic transmission, so we will do the manual shifts here and try that out and see how it does. Pretty quick for those downshifts. And let's see about go down to second here, wait for it to straighten out for this road a little bit, and try some shifts. Alright, it's the red number there, but alright, interesting. It seems like it's like cutting off, or the paddle shifts are just like a little slow to react, because I'm not able to do do like an actual like 7,500 pull, and like once the company before that. But let's try that one more time here. Yeah, you just gotta pull a paddle super early, and then it'll work with you there. But you know, it's pretty good with those upshifts, and yeah, brakes still feel good. I am noticing though, I think the brakes feel a little less grabby than my S550 with the Brembos I have on my 2019 Bullet, where those seem to clamp down a little bit harder as you get on them. This is a little bit more of a progressive ramp up. I'm feeling like I have to push the brakes a little harder to get the same braking out of it that I get in my Bullet, to be totally honest. But yeah, this thing feels so good. The good downshifts though, I do like it. And yeah, it still wants to play around with that back end. One interesting change they did make actually for the performance package though, is they did change the tires. It's still 255 in the front, 275s in the rear, but they are now Pirelli P0 summer tires instead of the Michelin Pilot Sport 4 S tires you had before. Man, but it was putting the power down really well there. Of course, you still have the independent rear suspension from the S550. But, I mean, it really did a good job there of gripping. And by the way, it's only 46 degrees today, and these Pirelli summer tires are still doing a pretty good job of gripping. Typically, in the past, I've preferred the Michelins over the Pirellis myself. But so far, I mean, it's been gripping pretty good here. So, no complaints at the offset. I know some people have passed Pirellis, didn't have great luck with them in the wet, and the Michelins were a little better there. But at least as far as dry roads on a sunny day here, even when it's colder, I mean, these tires are still gripping really well. And I think I am definitely, I mean, it definitely feels sharper and, you know, more eager to change direction, of course, with that steering ratio. And I am really appreciating that. That is a really big improvement. But, you know, I'd say otherwise, though, you know, since the seating position is the same, since everything else feels pretty similar, I mean, there is still, it definitely is an evolution. I'm noticing that it is certainly a nice improvement. It is better than the S550 easily. I even just drove a 2023 Mach 1 just a few weeks ago, and this certainly feels, you know, even sharper than that. It's really a nice evolution. It's not a wildly different experience. If you're used to S550s, you know, this is still going to be a pretty familiar experience to you, but it's a meaningful enhancement. And so if you're someone who just, you know, really likes your S550 Mustang, but you want to just have, you know, a little bit more sharpness, a little bit more acceleration, you want the new look, you want the new interior, you're tired of, you know, 10 years basically of the prior generation, you just want something fresh and new, this gives you a familiar, fun experience, just a little bit better with all the newest stuff. And I think, yeah, that's all you needed to do with the Mustang. It was already amazing and awesome as it was. So why mess with success? I certainly can appreciate Ford's approach here. Instead of trying to do something wildly different and, you know, gambling more, I think this is the safe play, but I think that in this case it pays off and it makes a lot of sense. But they did make some pretty nice changes here to this engine. So even though it has the same red line of 7,500 and it's only a minor bump in horsepower compared to the previous generation, you have dual throttle body intakes there. And so as you can see, it's a really cool look there under the hood, having the dual throttle bodies. I love the Easter eggs as well with the little, you know, displacement and the little V8 badges on the inside of those air boxes there. Lots of cool little Easter eggs, you know, whether it's the pony here on the grill or in the headlights or the windshield, or, you know, the little cutout you have on the rear trunk lid area, the little generation graphic there on the lower rear window. You know, there's a lot of nice little Easter eggs built in here. But yeah, I mean, you know, as far as the engine's feel goes, it's been many years since I've driven an automatic GT, to be totally honest, but you know, sound-wise, it still sounds really similar to me, it's just, you know, the same great goodness. And again, that motor is amazing. There's no need for any changes there. So I'm, again, just really thankful that they kept it as awesome and as, you know, fire-breathing as they did. You know, these are still every bit as fun as they ever have been. And I'd be curious to try out the Dark Horse with its extra, you know, a little bit of horsepower there. But, you know, I think you're going to find that it's, you know, all of these are going to be a similar experience, but there's nothing wrong with that because it's still a great experience. But yeah, stability here is really great. And we got a nice tight corner. I'll even go first. And it really, okay, it's, yeah, this automatic still, it's not not as responsive as I want it to be because I'm doing upshifts close to red line and it just ends up hitting the rev limiter. So that's a little bit annoying. You just gotta really make sure that you're shifting early, at least pulling the paddle early. But, you know, we'll try out the regular, just automatic here, see how it does on its own here. Because, you know, most automatics are most happy whenever they're just left in their auto modes to do their own thing. But yeah, I like, you know, it still moves around under acceleration. It still feels twitchy. It's still, you know, it's confidence inspiring, but it's, you know, you still have to use your judgment whenever you're accelerating out of corners in this, and it still feels rowdy. It still feels, you know, vicious and raw and exciting. And they didn't polish it over too much so that it's, you know, sanitized. It's still this, you know, just burly muscle car like you want it to be. But yeah, I mean, you know, in automatic mode, it's responsive enough. It's still a little slushy. I wish it kind of would hold gears more, and I'd like even more feel. I'd like to feel it banging into those gears instead of, you know, hopping around as much as it does. You know, like right there, I was giving it throttle, but it took it a second or two to be like, oh, okay, now we'll give you some more. But, you know, once it gets the idea, then it's totally fine. So it's very similar to me compared to my last experience in an S550 with a 10-speed auto. I know the transmission will learn the driver and how you drive and will adjust itself and get better over time. But yeah, this thing really great grip, feels really, really good. But it's interesting, yeah, honestly, I feel like even though the brakes are the same, I have a little less confidence in them just because, again, I gotta do more pressure. It's just something you're gonna have to learn and get used to. But again, coming out of an S550 with Brembos, you know, just be prepared. You're gonna have to, you know, put a little more muscle into your braking action, I think, in these with the electronic brake booster. Maybe it's the extra power or the other changes, but I feel like I'm certainly getting a little more wheel spin than I did in the Bullets or like I've had in other Performance Pack GTs. So I have a feeling that maybe these Pirellis aren't as sticky as the Michelin. So if you're used to Performance Pack levels of grip in the prior generation, just be warned of the Pirellis here. It might be a little bit more tail happy on you, which is fun. I love tail happiness. I love wheel spin. All that stuff is great. And of course, you know, if you want more of that, you also have the line lock features. You can do burnouts where it'll lock the wheels there in order to allow you to do a burnout, you know, stationary. It also does have all the track apps, so again, you can do your 0 to 60 timers, your quarter-mile timers. You know, you can play around with all that stuff. There's a bunch of cool things that they've built into these, and that's again something from the S550s that carries over, but it's really great that you still have that stuff, and that's some stuff that, you know, some of the other competitors never really offered those types of features, so it's great you still have that. But otherwise, yeah, I just absolutely love the way this thing drives. It is really, really, really fun. And so yeah, I mean, other things here, you know, fuel economy is about the same as it was for the last generation. Interestingly, you lose 1 mpg compared to the last generation with the automatic, and so now with an automatic, I'm getting the same fuel economy here in this as far as the numbers from the EPA compared to what I get in my manual Bullet. So not sure, yeah, I guess the extra, a little bit of horsepower, maybe the extra breathing with the dual, you know, intakes there just causes you to lose 1 mpg. No one's going to care on something like this. If you want better fuel economy, get an EcoBoost. They're much, much better. It's still a ton of fun if you're someone who wants to save some money at the pump. As far as pricing, that is something that definitely has changed. They've gotten a lot more expensive. A lot of that is just inflation, though, and you know, it's just the way things are. You can go on an inflation calculator and see for yourself. You know, it's a lot of it is just inflation. It's a little bit beyond just the normal inflation, you know, surplus there, but you know, for the money these days, you know, they're reasonably priced compared to everything else that's out there in, again, the car market in 2023, 2024 here. With these starting just under $45,000 for a base GT. This one, as equipped, should be around $52,000, and then to get a spec like my Bullet with the MagnaRide dampers, the premium interior with the leather and all the other stuff that goes along with it, one of those is going to end up costing you about $60,000. I paid $50,000 for my Bullet 5 years ago. Again, a lot of that's just inflation, but you know, if your wages haven't inflated as fast as you know, car prices have, you know, it's just going to be a tough pill to swallow. And so, you know, that's really the dilemma here. And I think, you know, it really comes down to how badly do you want the new stuff. If you really want all the new improvements here as far as the interior and the exterior, you want the new look, certainly, you know, go for it. But I think if you're someone who just wants, you know, a 7,500 RPM redline V8, you wants, you know, a fun muscle car, you know, I just reviewed again a Mach 1 from 2023 here, and that 2023 Mach 1, the guy paid like under 50 grand for it, brand new, with, you know, basically the same horsepower. Again, you miss out on stuff, and it's the last generation, but, you know, it just really is going to come down to you. Do you want to pay that premium for the new stuff? If you do, go for it. This is fantastic. The steering is certainly better, and I really like a lot of the improvements here. But are those improvements worth 10 grand more? You know, you do have more standard safety tech on these than you had before. It's like blind spot monitoring standard now. And, you know, you can get adaptive cruise here and other things. It has the automatic emergency braking, all that is standard now too. So there are some other things here added in, again, in addition to the inflation there. But, you know, it's just, they're not cheap anymore. But I gotta say that at least they priced this better than like the Z Nismo, with those being 68 grand for way less car. This is so much better for, you know, less money, much less money. And, you know, it's just really a no-brainer. I think these Mustangs have the same awesome appeal they always have had. You know, these days though, there are like, there's like the BMW M2 now, which you can get for about 62 or so as well. A little more expensive than one of these, and comes down to what options you want. But, you know, there is some stuff now. C8 Corvettes are 68 grand. So if you're loading one of these up, it gets a little bit harder to justify. But I think the way that the owner of this one optioned theirs, you know, coming in the low 50s there, or even if you want to go skimpier on options, if you don't care about the performance stuff, you know, you can go for something in the mid to high 40s. And I think these are still phenomenal values at any price point, honestly. I think even the Dark Horse really has a case to be made for itself as well. And again, the fact there is no more Camaro, there is no more V8 Challenger, Charger, at least as far as we know right now, since we don't have as much information on that one. But you know, this is the only game in town, and I'm really thankful that Ford was able to keep this around, and not just keep it around, but keep it around with a V8 engine, with a manual transmission option. You know, all these things are really just gifts for the automotive enthusiasts these days that, you know, we're not going to have forever. And so if you've been on the fence about these and you want one, definitely go for it, because these things are awesome. They're so much fun, and man, you could never get tired of that exhaust and that performance. I mean, 7,500 RPMs is so rare these days, even in like, you know, other smaller things, like even a BRZ or a Miata doesn't have a red line this high. To get it in a V8 powered thing is just truly just so much fun. I've loved my V8 Mustangs the many years that I've owned them, and it's great to see this nice evolutionary improvement here for the 2024s. But anyway, I'll leave you guys with one last acceleration here. Yeah, see, it moves around under acceleration there. Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely very fun, and keeps you on your toes, just like you want a Mustang too. But anyway, huge thanks once again to one of my subscribers here for allowing me to review his 2024 Mustang. I'm so thankful I finally got to experience one of these. Definitely subscribe and stay tuned. Hopefully Ford will send me a Dark Horse to test at some point, and an EcoBoost as well. So if you're curious about more thoughts on the 2024 Mustang, definitely subscribe, stay tuned, and like this video if you enjoyed it as well, to keep more of these videos coming. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.